Hey guys, what's going on? Underground Geek here. So I had a couple people tell me to read this book. I know Diversity in Comics did a video on this where he said it was great. I know Yellow Flash did a video on this where he said it was boring. So they were telling me to kind of read it and kind of be the tiebreaker on this kind of thing. So I read it. It's Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 42. Still got Dan Slott on it. And this one's a little different because you know, annuals are a little different. They got their own story. You know, they don't necessarily go with the main story of the run. So it'll be a little bit different. Now, I do think it's kind of funny that the Alex Ross cover has Spider-Man almost looking like Andrew Garfield, and there's a bonus story in the back by a Broadway playwright, David Hine. So, anyway, this story gets started, and like I said, it's written by Dan Slott, it's colored by Corey Smith, or it's penciled by Corey Smith, and it's inked and finished by Terry Pallett. Okay, so we got Joe Caramagna doing the lettering. We got Alex Ross doing the cover, of course, and then we've got an assistant editor and an associate editor and an editor on this. So yeah. So as we get into this, we've got this this gang here. This I don't know if they ever tell who they are exactly, but they're clones that the Jackal had brought back to life during the second clone conspiracy, because you know we had to keep doing the same stories over and over. And so now they've got this boss that they're working for, and they call him the underboss pretty much. And so he tells them to go out and do some missions for him. And then we cut to Peter Parker and what's her name, Betsy, and she's trying to find out about what happened to her husband and why Blood Creek is involved. Spider-Man's trying to, you know, support her, or Peter Parker's trying to support her, but at the same time he doesn't believe this fortune teller. And so he says something out of line. She kicks him out. Then as they're talking, he pretty much gets in an argument with Betsy and then runs off because he feels somebody following them. And so when he goes after him, the dude just keeps disappearing. He's like, what's going on here? So after that, he pretty much says, you know, crap, I can't believe that happened. Time to move on. And then we get to City Hall. And at City Hall, you've got Betsy talking to her friend about, you know, the statue and what's going on. They're sitting in front of the statue. There's a bum over there by the statue asking for spare change. And then we move on to the next scene where Peter Parker's at the Daily Bugle with Betsy, and they're both talking about the story, and they find out they're talking about the same story. So then they have to work together, even though they don't really get along that well. And so it's a very cool dynamic. You've got two people having to work out their differences to get what they want. You've got Peter Parker actually talking to a girl and being confident, which is different. So they head to the school to find out what's going on. Now there's a different dynamic here at the school, because this is the same school that when Doc Ock had Peter Parker's body, went to get his doctorate. And so now he's got to deal with the fallout of that, because there's a security guard, an old lady security guard working at the desk, who invested in Peter Parker's company and lost everything whenever his company went under. And that was a terrible story. Dan Slott wrote that awfully. I mean, he made him a CEO, and then in less than a year it was gone, and it was just trash, just a trash story. So at the same time as he's talking to the old lady, Betsy goes up to talk to the professor, trying to find out about what's going on. Okay, so they're talking back and forth, and then bam, in walks the henchman. Okay, so that's not good. They said, Doc, Miss Brandt, school's out, class is dismissed. Y'all need to come with us now. So then, as they're trying to walk them out the door, that's when, you know, the security guard sees it, and then Peter Parker sees it. You see his Spidey sense go off. He disappears, and then bam, he comes back and he's Spider-Man. He's kicking butt. He's taking names. and he says, "Hi, friendly neighborhood hall monitor. Where's your bathroom pass?" Bow, kicks him. And so then he's having to deal with the big guy that's got Betsy and or Betty, and so he starts having these issues. And one of the issues that he has is he's ran out of spider web fluid, and that's one of the things he didn't used to have to deal with, because when he was rich he could just make as much as he wanted. But now he has to watch out for that kind of stuff. So he's having to think. He's having to think on his feet. So he powers up his Spidey signal, blinds the guy, then uses the chance to get away, saves her, but then when he goes back, the bad guys are gone. Excuse me. So he's gone now. So now they're just sitting there. They have nothing to do. So they decide to go to City Hall to look through the records for that the Blood Creek file. Okay, so as they're looking through there, they've got her friend helping that works at the office. Spider-Man's still in his costume, and that's when Mr. Fisk shows up. And he starts talking about the Blood Creek contingency. And he said that he had a sensor placed on the drawer, so if somebody was to open it and start reading it, he would know, because comic books. Nobody was possibly going to open that. There's no chance of that at all. So he shows up himself, of course, with henchmen, and attacks Spider-Man. You get this cool scene where Spider-Man's jumping up in the air. At the same time, Betty's trying to get away, and then somebody ends up helping him. It says that he's one of Ned's, which is her husband's, informant. So he helps her through a secret way into the sewer, which is like into the railway there underneath, and shows her how to get out. Well, at the same time, the henchmen show up again. So they've got them now. They've captured them, and they got everything they want. They finally meet the underboss, which is this pretty mean dude. He, of course, tells his master plan, and it turns out that the statue that they're all talking about that has to do with Blood Creek is actually made out of a material that is a bomb, and it was placed there intentionally so that if the government in that city ever started giving them a hard time, they could just blow it up and start over. And just the city part, not the whole town. So she says, well, why the statue? Who does the statue look like? And she's like, oh, it looks like you. And I mean, he's so vain at this point, he had to make a statue of himself, which was a bomb. So he's making his getaway. The good guys are left tied to the chair. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They've got nowhere to go. And then she's like, send me a sign, send me a sign. And he's like, you hear that? And it's like, thump, 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 wham, wham. And then bam, out smashes Spider-Man from the wall there. I thought that was really cool. You actually get to see some of Spider-Man's strength. I mean, he's a pretty strong dude. And he's saying, it's a good thing you were screaming. Don't let anybody tell you they can't hear you scream, because you should definitely do that. So then he goes after the bad guys. He jumps on the train. Betty goes up to the top. She says a bomb. At this point, Spider-Man is fighting the henchman with everything he's got. We got all this action going on. She's tussling with the butler that's got the bomb, all that blah blah blah. And then we cut to Betty here, and she's writing the story, and it says a message from the long dead about a war that never took place. And you see the guys in jail. You see the statue being taken down. You see Spider-Man reading the newspaper, and he says, it's like 1 second everyone's at Dragonstone, and the next she said, enough with Game of Thrones references, I get it. He says, sorry, it's a good piece. I actually like the shared byline, and that you put Ned's name first. And she says, it was his story, not mine, definitely not Pete's. It says, don't be too mad with him, okay? He was, she said, looking after me, I know, don't worry. We're meeting later for lunch. So then as she's meeting with Spider-Man, they're starting to iron things out, and then you see them start to talk, and that dude, the bum from earlier, walks away, and it's actually that Ned clone. So, where's that going to go later on? Her husband, that clone. So I don't know what's happening here, but all in all, it was a pretty interesting story. I wouldn't say it was just great. And then they're talking about next week Anti-Venom's back, and then in March possibly Peter Parker and Mary Jane are back united. I really doubt that, but maybe. And then they've got a little mini story, Sense and Sensibility. It's a little story where Spider-Man, is having problems with his Spidey sense. Pretty good art, but not a very good, interesting story. But all in all, this was a pretty decent comic book, okay? It's not as bad as normal because Spider-Man's actually tough. Spider-Man's actually masculine. And that was our main problem. You made Spider-Man effeminate and having all these problems, and you drug it out too long. It could have been okay if it was 2 or 3 issues, but you made it like 10 years, dude. I mean, it was too far. It's too much of a mess. Now, they'd asked me to be the tiebreaker on this. I would say it's a pretty decent comic book, but at the same time, it's a pretty forgettable comic book. I doubt that anyone will remember this annual. I still remember Spider-Man, or I still remember Batman 2, the annual, and I'll probably forget this book tomorrow. It's just not very memorable. It's a step in the right direction, but like I said, it's not very memorable. But alright guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I hope you liked the video. I would definitely get the comic book anyway if you're wanting a good Spider-Man comic book, because that's what it's going to be. But it's not anything outrageous, guys. So, alright guys, I'll talk to you later. Underground Geek out.